Hey everyone, this is Manly Badass Hero, and welcome to Romancing Flesh, which is a game that involves a lot of body horror and also a lot of meat. The warden wants to see you. Follow me. It's all yours, sir. You're relieved, Jeremiah. Best get home to the missus. Thank you, sir. Well, this background music is really... It's not that it's weird, but it's like... It's got a certain rhythm that's making it very surreal. I've transformed DeLeo Correctional Institute from a dingy county jail to one of the top facilities in the country. Did you know that? I didn't do that just by imprisoning small-time crooks, murderers, and thieves. No, sir. Over the years, I have created a very specific type of prisoner. Deviants. Anime fans? They're not like you or me. Anime fans? Sickos. Perverts. Communists. Whatever you want to call them. They can't be rehabilitated because they're barely human to begin with. Anime fans? And the strangest part is, you'd think every part of their brain is broken, but they can still feel shame. A father of 3 will try to shoot you dead if you accuse him of putting on dresses and having sex with bellboys. And hell, even my own mother was a goddamn suffragette. But me or dad would have beaten the snot out of her when we found her out before she croaked on us. A difficult thing to get confessions from these freaks. Now normally when a district attorney needs a bit more time to build a case against one of these deviants, they'll rush them through the courts in some trumped up charge, keep them in prison for a while, hopefully buy enough time to build a case. But if they can't, DeLeo Correctional Institute will get a confession for them. We've read the works of Freud, Moreno, and Watson. We produced the experiments of Pavlov and Skinner, and consulted with Wertham, Miller, and Young. And we've distilled them all into an effective methodology that loosens a prisoner's tongue, while leaving them free of the physical cuts and bruises that don't play well to judges and juries. Real humane-like. But listen me ramble on. The reason I brought you in here is because your cellmate, Miss Charles Keating, is one of these deviants. We've tried our best to build a psychological profile on him, find a proper plan of attack, but Mr. Keenan managed to run out of the clock on us. Mr. Keenan will have served his sentence as of midnight tonight. Unless we get a confession in the next few hours. I want you to read these documents from the U.S. Attorney's Office. If you believe anything in these documents can be used to get a confession on Mr. Keenan, we need to know. In return, if you merely read these documents, even if you don't find anything, we'll consider your sentence served. I know. Sounds too good to be true. Anything you can tell us might be the key to keeping this monster behind bars. He doesn't fit into the world. He belongs with me. This is a very interesting game perspective-wise so far. So drag an object to move it, click it to view. Okay. I see a... It's more of a facility than a house, or maybe like a greenhouse. Car. What do we got here? Recording date February 12th, 1942. Hello. Dr. Petrov. I'm sorry for the call. The bus trip is taking a bit longer than I was expecting, but I should be there in just a couple more days. That's fine. I'm still setting up the lab, and most of my supply shipments will be arriving late as well. You should be in town just in time to help me get everything up and running. Phew, good. Is there anything I should brush up on before I get to the lab? I managed to grab a decent selection of medical journals while I was in Boston. Plant cellular structure. What? And the way they got these things to move is weird, creepy. Nature of the work we'll be doing is a bit cross-disciplinary. I trust your medical knowledge is up to date. but you need to make sure you've brushed up on some of the basics of botany. I suppose I could visit a bookstore while we're at a stop. A newsstand should have some periodicals. No need for the latest journals, Mr. Keating. You don't need to know the latest scientific learnings, but you should be able to write and illustrate a grade school textbook on basic plant biology with your eyes closed before you get here. Oh, make sure to study hard on the trip over. Good lad. And, if you could bring a tin of real coffee, I'd appreciate it. We're down to the stuff cut with chicory down here. I'll try my best, sir. See you in a few days. Oh, and I forgot to ask if it was alright for me to record the call. So that's the person we're dealing with case-wise. So what did they do? Dearest Mother, the bus trip is a bit longer and more uncomfortable than I was expecting, but I should be in Alabama within a few days. I've called Dr. Petrov's office, and he assures me his facility is a few hours outside of Fayette. So I'm not as far as from civilization as I feared. I may have to forego the nightly edition of the paper, but we all must make deep sacrifices in times of war. Please remind Favre that Dr. Petrov's work is being funded by the U.S. Army, and though I won't exactly be one of the tough SOBs marching into Hirohito's palace, I'll be an active contributor to the war effort. Besides, I hear if I were a service member, the letters I send you would look like Swiss cheese, and we don't want to exacerbate your lactose intolerance. I hope this letter finds you in better spirits than when I left, and in worse spirits than when I'm there. Your loving son, Charles. The science is poor pursuit for young men. Too much infatuation with the new and novel, with no room to appreciate the refuge of tradition. Quite frankly, Mr. Keating should have seen what was coming next. What came next? What the? U.S. government-funded weird finger vampire flower things? It's like cells or something. Okay, nothing behind that. What's in this one? March 8th, 1942. This is subject 42, FA5, and it's time for a meal. What? Why did it skip past that dialogue? Let me see. It's automatically skipping between it, sadly. I'm trying to, lock in it so I can read it. Require a fly every few hours till it fully blooms. It seems to be able to sense when the fly is near, but further experimentation will be needed to determine how. Notice here she swallows the fly whole, crushing inside of its stomach. Once it starts growing teeth in a few days, she'll switch to chewing as it conserves a bit more energy. What is that? Recording dated March 3rd, 1942. There, we're recording now. I don't want to be recorded. Then what the hell did you get me involved with Dr. Petrov? It's a flower, Charles. It has teeth. That's what I said. Yes, the teeth were unexpected, but look how evenly they grew in. True. Some nice teeth. The tetracy isn't an issue, Dr. Petrov. What you're doing is unethical. How exactly is it unethical? You ripped apart a living, breathing thing to make... Mr. Keating, this isn't a butcher's shop. I'm not hacking and stitching animals together like cheap circus attractions. I grew this flower from a blastocyst. I fertilized the egg by needle injection in my lamb. What do you mean, grew? Before it reaches the embryonic stage, you can count the number of cells inside the blastocyst by hand. If you have an expensive microscope, a small needle, and lots of time, you can even identify what each of those individual cells would grow and divide into. So I take those individual cells, and instead of letting it grow into a monkey, I manually remove what I don't want to grow, and rearrange what I do want to grow. But why turn on that? 'Cause science, you fool. You read those botany books, like I told you to, yes? Yes? Very simple structures, aren't they? Most of the plant is made of the same type of cell. No complicated organ systems, no skeletal structure, no need for a centralized brain. If I took these pre-embryonic masses of cells and just rearranged them willy-nilly, I'd create thousands of malformed failures before I stumbled on a useful form. So instead, I used plant structures as a basis to rearrange the cells, and the results have been astounding. Just a few rows in my pseudo-plant cell design, it not only maintains the structure, but continues growing it naturally, like the animal cells can remember the plant roots. Pardon the pun, of course. But you're missing the point. We're getting to the root of the problem, we're not missing the point. You're not growing a new life, you're forcing something to suffer from its own birth. They don't suffer, Charles. Probably don't even have feelings, or pain, or anything. You've essentially just created like a meat puppet in the shape of a flower, it looks like. I've been analyzing their brain patterns. They use so little energy to grow, their brains default to a dream state, a calm, peaceful sleep. And then we'll be killing them for their meat. Yes, but someday, I'll design them to grow as large as trees, shedding meat like apples of their branches, living for hundreds of years. A forest of these trees will negate the need to raise animals for slaughter, ending a 10,000-year genocide of innocent creatures. I already bought a plot of land a bit further north, when I'm ready to grow them. I thought it would take decades for me to make something like this, but then I found you. I had read your paper on our typical embryonal development, and it felt like a practical extension of my own work on the teratology of plants and animals. That paper was on birth defects, Petrov. I can't do that to animals on purpose. What's evolution, if not a series of beneficial birth defects? What would take 1,000 generations and dead ends to spontaneously develop? We could grow overnight. You basically are growing a giant hamburger meat patty. That's evolution. While other scientists are trying to fix the problems nature gave us, we'll design a sustainable future for the planet. Well, it should be a future without biting flowers at least. But maybe you could isolate the stomach and rearrange the structure like a Venus flytrap. A Venus flytrap. See, I'm glad I recorded that, because I am out of pen ink. So you're trying to solve world hunger. Why does it have like weird scary teeth then? Dear Aunt Sonia, happy birthday. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person this year, but I hope my package arrived in time for the party. Work has been busier than expected. I'm sorry if my last few letters gave the impression that I can be frank about the work I'm doing, but now that the lab is fully operational and the experiment has started in earnest, I realize some self-censorship on my own part will be required. In the vaguest terms possible, my work involves supplementing the Army's diet with quick and cheap meat, but Dr. Petrov has some lofty goals for the research could lead. I'm sorry to say your sister's son attend college to become a glorified sausage maker, but it's not the worst place war could have taken me. That being said, Dr. Petrov is very passionate about the work we're doing. It's miles different from the lab work at Tufts College. There's a half-dozen experiments in different stages of development, and every day I'm learning something new. It's frantic and fast-paced, but energizing. It'll be a while before we're manufacturing canned meats, but I could probably trade you some jerky for your homemade fudge by next Christmas. Your loving nephew, Charles. Now, men like you or I, we know better. When the witch in the woods welcomes you into her gingerbread house, you don't accept the invitation. You throw her in the fire. Oh, God. Alright, let's look at this one. I don't even know to begin what to describe that as. Tasty flower. Okay, that looks vaguely a little more normal. Blood flowers? I mean, when you want blood, just get some blood flowers. Recording date August 24th, 1942. Okay, it's on. Say it again, Charles. Chimera? Haha, yes, but the whole thing, drunk. The entire thing you said. The whole thing again. Okay. The plantables we've been growing tend to be fairly small for a lot of reasons. We've only grown them from a single rearranged blastocyst. We've only allowed them a few weeks to reach maturity. The plants can't grow faster than the animal's parts that came from wood. Yes, but get to the important part. Okay, so our experiments with grafting have been failures. But instead of trying to graft during adulthood, we could simply make our pre-embryonic blueprints bigger by using more blastocysts. And this wouldn't result in rejection because we have well-documented cases of siblings ingesting other smaller embryos in the womb, resulting in embryo-containing cells from both siblings, chimeras. We'll merely start that stage in the process even earlier, assemble larger plants. Now that implies we can only use genetic siblings to build these plants. I assume we can't use other animals too genetically unsimilar. We could certainly experiment to find out. I'd certainly like to see a rabbit pigeon dandelion, or something. You blow out, and a bunch of seeds will fly off a rabbit ear's wing. You see, inspiration can strike at any time, Charles. We could have forgotten all about this in the morning. Yes, fine. I can see the merits of your little recording device there. Oh, another idea. What if you made the plant animals interconnected with each other? Like pieces of a puzzle piece. You can have one plant specially designed to collect and refine nutrients, which can feed a second plant that can just focus on growing bigger. That's a strange place to need a mouth, Charles. Wherever you'd like to put it on your mouth is fine to me, Dr. Petrov. Huh? What was that? Oh, yeah, it was just a little joke. Let's call it a night. You aren't recording this by any chance, are you? Dear Cousin Delilah, I've been paying extra to get the hometown papers shipped down here to Alabama. I read that you won a blue ribbon for your peanut butter fudge at the county fair last month. You must be absolutely over the moon. I can relate to a lesser extent. As I've told you in my last correspondence, I'm finally getting the hang of the work which must be a secret, and I've managed to make a breakthrough of my own. Essentially for the past year, I've been trying to perfect Dr. Petrov's recipes. He'll make some new sort of confectionery when he feels like I'm ready. I'll go through the hard work of perfecting it. A little less flour here, a little more baking powder there, trying to get the ratios just right. But I've finally made a recipe of my own. I hope someday I can share it with you and the rest of the family. Make you as proud as you all make me. Especially the ribbon winners among you. With love, Charles. P.S. Take heed. Your mother won't stay the number 2 baker in the family for long, and you'll make everyone in the family fat with fudge until she's reclaimed her crown. If they stop there, we might be hailing them as gastronomic pioneers. Heck, I might have been eating ribbon eye salad for dinner tonight. But I think they want more than food. Why? What happened? Okay. You started making really weird rabbits. There's those weird flowers again. Hold up, something's down here. So this one's like... It's like part octopus. The rest of it, I don't know. Recording date November 20th, 1942. Audio log 10:30:42. We may have hit a snag with the rabbit experiment. Off screen. Are you recording a log of the rabbit experiment? It's just a lover's spat, Sergey. They'll be back together in no time. The rabbit's new leg bit it, Charles. I warned you this might happen if you didn't engineer both of the animals together that way. Oh, you started naming them all. Weird. Ona was a little confused, that's all. Let Jack settle down for a couple days and I'm sure he'll take Ona back. After seeing how quickly Jack took to his new leg, I was more than happy to let this whole thing keep going. But is this necessarily the best thing for the both of them? Ona can move around on their own, and so can Jack. They're not wholly dependent on one another. Maybe we could just let them stay friends. Just stay friends? We should really be focusing on our real work. Plus, it's just starting to veer off both of our areas of expertise. Let's just call the experiment off for now. You want to call it off, Sergey? He's not calling him Petrov. Well, maybe I should take your advice and engineer a new symbiote for Ona then. A new partner might solve Ona's problems. Well, we don't know what sort of effect that'll have on Jack, mentally speaking. Again, Charles, this is all very new to me. Everything we've been doing here has been new to me. Some new experimental organism, a novel discovery, some unexpected result. And it is exciting, don't get me wrong. But it's nice to have someone reliable in all that chaos. Who is also a little exciting himself. And I'm glad that person has been you. Maybe we can keep the Jack and Olna experiment going. We can pick up the discussion in the morning if you prefer. Dear Great Uncle Anthony, I tried recreating your famous dry rub mix. Some of the ingredients were hard to come by, rationing and all that, but I think we managed to get a close approximation. Notice how, like, the person they write to changes every time, so they're writing to a person who's hiding their identity. We threw a little backyard barbecue for the neighborhood to taste test our first production batch of meat, and it was a resounding success, so we saw it on the photo. The whole experience has given me a newfound appreciation for the time I spent on your farm when I was younger. Dr. Petrov nearly fainted during the butchering process, thinking me to do it all on my own. He reminded me of the time you put Clarabelle chicken on my dinner plate. Please write back when you have the chance. I'm dying to hear how the rest of the family's doing. Your city slicker grandnephew, Charles. Everything you've read so far is what I've had to scrape and scrounge to get from government files. So you've already read all the juicy stuff. The rest is the boys in the blue mopping up. Mopping up? Oh god, it's weird as hell, Bamboo. Incident report narrative. On day above, P.O. Daniels responded to a call about an escaped animal. Upon finding a loose cow, P.O. Daniels saw its mouth was covered in blood. Upon closer inspection, the grass the cow was eating was some kind of malformed rat stuck in the ground. After calling for backup, officers discovered a sizable acreage of buried, deformed animals. Mr. Keating became agitated. In response, officers were forced to put him into submission. Mr. Petrov was taken into custody for questioning. For health and safety reasons, it was decided to humanly dispatch animals before bringing Mr. Petrov and Mr. Fielding to custody. Memo for the Office of Redacted. As my JAG officers previously claimed on my behalf, Dr. Sergei Petrov was awarded a government contract from General Redacted, who died at Redacted during Redacted, resulting in a transition period in which most of Petrov's work of an already secretive nature was done with little to no oversight until my office was made aware of it. Unfortunately, my upcoming absolvement may result in many more officers lower along the chain of command being found at fault. Officers you do not want to bring to court during these desperate times. Considering the improbability of systematic failure within the U.S. Armed Forces, I suggest we propose the possibility that foreign agents were involved. Under specific circumstances, Petrov was working as a contractor. A treason charge would take him outside the U.S. military jurisdiction and tried as a civilian. You're welcome, Redacted. To Redacted. Mr. Keating and I are currently in Fayette County Jail. I believe the police have set fire to most of our work. I tried to save as much of our work as possible, but please send copies of all the records I've sent so far to your offices. And if you have any internal copies of your correspondences, please send those as well. We've made remarkable progress in the last few months, and I believe if we act quickly, we can still reach our first production deadline. Thank you. We live in a delicate world, in a fragile time. Is it not the era for radical new ideas? We just fought a long and hard war to re-establish the grand order of the world, for heaven's sake. And on American soil, a couple of dandy bookworms were playing God if eating diseased meat to our children. I couldn't stand it. So I took a leaf from Mr. Petrov's playbook. I psychologically tore Mr. Keating apart, and reformed and re-educated him as I saw fit. Into you. Wait. In the disassociated state you're in, Mr. Keenan, it gives you a sense of clarity, doesn't it? You can see what I see. Why didn't your family ever write you back? Why did your lover try to rescue his work instead of you? If you leave this prison tonight, where can you go? You know the answers. You know why you're here. You know why you need to sign this confession. Why you need to stay behind bars. You left home and traveled across the country, hoping you'd change into the sort of person your family would miss. But instead of doing something to make them proud, you decided to pursue what made you happy. and became a sick caricature of everything your parents hated about you in the first place. A mama boy sticking his meat in the dirt, hoping it would grow. Sign the confession. If you leave this prison now, you'll undo all the work I've done for you. You'll fall back into bad habits and become the same person you were 3 years ago. None of us want that, would you? No, I don't want to change back, Warden. What? I've made so much progress. It was hard fabricating the equipment necessary to do Dr. Pedro's work, but you wouldn't believe how fruitful my experiments have become. What? And quite frankly, I like the persons I've become. Weird. It took me months to find you. You didn't answer when I called your name. From a distance, I almost couldn't recognize you. But I found you. I hope you're dreaming of me. Drinking from the brook. Eating the fruit from your branches. Huddling from the rain and sleep in your safe embrace. And someday in a brief moment of lucidity, maybe you'll read this message and know I'm gone. You want us to change the world, and we did. Starting with ourselves. I'll always remember you fondly. Love, Charles. So that's it for Romancing Flesh. So I see where the romancing part comes out from. Because there is this really weird, possessive romance that kind of sneaks in towards the end there, as we see with the outcome of the ending. We don't get quite why they start making this huge jump from like, oh, let's make giant things of meat farms, to let's start modifying our own bodies with these experiments. We don't quite see the transition there, but I'm gonna assume at some point they start thinking like, hey, we're trying to like experiment on these animals. Remember you said like they're gonna go for like they're gonna merge two different animals that kind of like do different things for each other. And at some point, enough time passed that things just got really weird. They just started like, let's test it on a human. We don't have any human subjects. We'll just start testing on ourselves. That's the ethical thing to do. And it went downhill from there. And then we ended up creating some kind of weird Lovecraftian, The Fly kind of like creatures. Like at the end, Charles himself was multiple beings. Like everything started breaking apart. Not because he was falling apart, because he was no longer like a solid, singular thing anymore. And Dr. Petrov became a tree. I'm half debating if he was forcibly turned into a tree. Part of that whole weird possessive angle. But yeah, creepy, bizarre visual novel. I'm using bizarre in a good way. Because it's just a bunch of pictures of things like merged together for the imagery, right? But it made it look pretty weird and really effective for just to get a little like, you know, like skin crawling feeling. Some of them weren't too bad. There was a couple there where kind of like, that's really weird. And the way the models moved, like it wasn't just a static image. They had those kind of moving bodies and faces. Also, they added another surreal edge. Combined with the soundtrack, it's like you were being like triple hit here. Like soundtrack, the models, like the characters, and then like the weird actual body horror itself. So overall, an effective, surreal body horror visual novel. Anyway, so thank you all for watching me play Romancing Flesh. I'll see you guys later, and take it easy.